Homeschooling's the long game. The school system concept gives the parents a break, because homeschooling is great, but it demands almost everything from you. You know, God gave you these kids. They're your responsibility, not someone else's. So you are forming their hearts in the long term. What kind of man is your son going to become? What kind of woman is your daughter going to become? If they're out of school, you are no longer the main influence of their life.
Welcome to CHEA's California Homeschool Podcast. I'm Angela Lasch, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. Today's guest has one of the most interesting paths into the homeschool world that I've come across. He's played in a rock band, went to film school, and somewhere along the way, made a documentary that changed the direction of his own family. Caleb Price is a homeschool dad of 5, the founder of the podcast Upload, and is the creator of Caleb Price Productions, where he makes films built around meaningful storytelling. He is passionate about using story to strengthen families, encourage faith, and help parents think intentionally about discipleship in the home. And I know today's conversation is going to encourage you in your homeschool journey. Hello, Caleb. I'm so glad you're here and we finally got a chance to do this. I can't wait to have the people listening get to know you a little bit better.
Totally, Angela. I'm excited. This is California is where we started homeschooling, so I'm excited to get into it.
Well, you have a very interesting background. Just reading your bio, some of the highlights: you were in a rock band, you went to film school, you did some documentary about homeschooling. So give us the highlight reel. How did this journey unfold for you?
Well, it's interesting because looking at it, you would say that's definitely not the path to homeschool. But then you look at it more and you're like, actually, that's the exact path to homeschool. It's punk rock. It's doing things different. It's going against the grain. It was the obvious path to homeschooling eventually. Yeah, I was I guess some people would call it a rock band. We would call it an emo band, which was big in the early 2000s. So yeah, sleeping in a van, eating cold pizza, playing it, the time we were playing some dive bars, but I don't know if everyone was under 21. So we'd have to wait outside. And then when you're allowed to play, you could come in and play and you had to go back outside. Then we played Warped Tour. Yeah, we had a great time. And then I went to film school and it was kind of in that same era. And then fast forward, I go to Bible school, I get married. We have some kids, and I directed a movie called Connect with Kirk Cameron. It was kind of about technology and what was happening to kids' brains. And it did really well, went to theaters. Netflix licensed it. And so we kind of rode that. And then, so I had 2 kids at the time, and he'd said, hey, let's do a documentary about homeschooling. And I said, that sounds horrifically boring, but hey, you're writing the checks. So yeah, let's do homeschooling. And then he said, I'm telling you, do some research on what this world looks like. And I promise you're going to be surprised. Because Kirk Cameron homeschooled, him and his wife homeschooled 6 kids. And so I just thought it was something like, okay, maybe that's what movie stars do if they're Christians to avoid whatever else is going on in California. I don't know. Education wasn't on my mind. So I really approached the film. The film's called The Homeschool Awakening. Very easy to watch now. It was in theaters a couple years ago, but now it's on Tubi, and Tubi's free. So they have it in English, and then they actually dubbed the whole thing into Spanish as well. So
interesting.
You can watch it in English or Spanish. And so I approached that whole film from a true documentarian perspective because I was not a homeschooler, nor was I homeschooled. So I was able to approach it as if I didn't know anything. So I probably spent months and months and months calling homeschool families all over the country, California, Colorado. Dr. Kathy Cook is in it. So I asked her about, she's in those spaces. So I had her educate me a lot on the child's brain and how it develops. And yeah, so that was kind of the genesis of that movie, that project.
That is fascinating. And I do remember I actually did watch it in theaters. So who would have thought a couple years later, here we are. No, I never would have believed that I would be talking to you about this one day. But it sounds like
you're the second person to tell me that, because this is a crazy story. So we're in Colorado now, but for the record and for this podcast, we did all of our early homeschooling in California, which is why I'm here and why CHEA is so important. But something like that happened recently because I was working of all people with our chiropractor. He's a great guy and kind of similar season of life. So they just decided to start homeschooling their kids. I was just talking. I was like, oh, we homeschool too. That's awesome. He's like, yeah, we saw a documentary about it with Kirk Cameron, and that convinced us to homeschool. I was like, I made that movie. He's like, no way.
How much of an influence was making that documentary on helping you and your wife decide to homeschool?
So a couple answers there, and a lot of it, I hope this helps your listeners, your viewers who are on this journey, because not everyone's the same. And as a man, sometimes I can subconsciously think everyone should think the same way as me, which is not appropriate. I'm not saying that's okay. I'm just saying that I have that tendency. So my wife and I already were bucking systems, right? So I was already running my own business. I did the Homeschool Awakening, and I was no longer working officially at CamFam Studios, which is Kirk's production company. I was running my own company. So the concept of like already unplugging from things and going into uncomfortable situations was already a welcome experience, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
COVID had hit in 2020, and my wife and I left Southern California and moved up to Humboldt County and lived in a renovated barn while we paid off my film school debt. So we were already okay with pivoting. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Which makes a big difference, I have learned. So I remember, Angela, I was in Indiana. I was in Indiana. My co-producer Josh had found this family. He's like, hey, got a great family to start with. They're in Indiana. The husband's an MMA fighter, and he trains other MMA fighters. She runs a small business, the wife. They have 2 kids and they're homeschooling. Eclectic, not necessarily high end, like wealthy earners, but kind of that normal American family with 2 kids. Like perfect. And I got to tell you, Angela, I stand up their apartment, and probably within 10 minutes of the interview, this is my first interview with them. 10 minutes in, I was like, this is better. Like, we're going to homeschool. Yeah. Like, it was that quick. If anyone is on the fence about homeschooling, like, just go hang out with some homeschool families, and you should probably be less on this. I mean, the same things you've heard all over. So anyway, I started interviewing a lot of families. They're traveling all over. And in California, it was really fun because California, the 2 families, we've highlighted a few, but the 2 in the movie we highlighted, we actually got to track with them homeschooling because they had never done it before. So I filmed with them the most because we would track their experience, which was really fun. And you just see the connection a parent has with the child. And then one person looking at you, Angela, in an interview, and this is how an analytical brain like mine thinks, like, hey, do you believe God gave you these children? And everyone was like, well, yes. Even if they're adopted, it's like, yes, this was part of God. He's sovereign. It's part of his plan. So great. So the Bible says to train up a child in the way they should go. It's like, okay, got it. So these are like really practical things, right? It's like, so statistically, how do you train someone? It's like, well, you spend time with them and you're intentional about how they should live life and how they should view the life, and everything from working hard to understanding money to understanding kindness and biblical worldview. It's like, okay, so statistically speaking, can you do that in the 5-minute drive to school and then picking them up after school and then for 35 minutes on a Sunday school lesson? It's like, to be blunt, Angela, you can't. Like, it's just not possible. And I know there's a lot of good ministries out there and a lot helping parents like meet their kids at the rad in between school. But, I talked to Dr. Kathy in the movie, and she kind of explains the child's brain. It's like, okay, so if the child's brain is elastic and it's constantly learning, and you give it to someone else for the vast majority of their, I don't know what you call it. It's like their sharp hours. It's like the minutes where their brains are like fresh. Like, you gave them to someone else. So you can't really disciple them. And that rubs some people the wrong way, and I just don't care because it's just true. So all of those push. Now, if my wife was here, she would tell you, yeah, easy for Caleb to say. He was traveling the country, flying around, filming, hanging out with cool people while she was pregnant with 2 children back in California. So she was like, no, I'm not homeschooling. But she saw all the editing and she saw all of these things that we were learning in the movie. And for her, it was a very fast transition too. She was like, yeah, this is better. And then by the time kindergarten rolls around, which the school system would like you to think it's mandatory, it's not. You don't have to send your kid to kindergarten. The school loves you to, and they want you to, but you don't need to. So, our son is around that age. We're like, oh, we're homeschooling, and this is so much better.
I love all the points you made up and or that you brought up. And yeah, our homeschool journey is very different, but it's funny because we actually sent our oldest to kindergarten and 1st grade, And that was just one of the things I resented. I'm like, the school is getting the best part of his day, and I'm getting the leftovers when he's tired and cranky and hungry, and we're trying to do a million things. And but you put it so much better. I love the way you put it. But that's how I just always felt like I got the leftovers. They got the best part of the day, and I got the leftovers. So, well, let's talk about California a little bit, because California actually has a reputation for, well, not a lot of great things, but homeschooling surprisingly is not as hard as people might think. So, what was your experience when you were homeschooling in California? Was it hard? Was it easy? How was it for
So
you?
that's a good question too, because I didn't go in the movie. We didn't go into a lot of the legalities of homeschooling. We a little bit, but mainly because it's just kind of dry. So we tried to more like tell the stories of people, like,
Yeah.
these kids fly airplanes, and these kids help manage a restaurant, and these kids are like they lived on the road for 3 years with their parents. But the California, I think, gets grouped into a lot of things, right? Because it's not necessarily known for being super business friendly. It's not known for like the best entrepreneurial states, like in the bottom 10, I think. And so I think in our brains, we just kind of compute, oh, it's an over-regulated state. Therefore, homeschooling is probably also over-regulated. But while we were there, we live in Colorado now. Both are I don't want to say easy because that's could be misleading. Both states are simple. California was more simple. My wife filed the letter of intent, and it was like one document, I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And we were homeschooling, and it was that simple. We bought our own curriculum, and we started teaching, and yeah, it was very simple. I mean, if people are listening or watching this as a clip, you definitely should reach out to CHEA and then just tell them, I want to homeschool. What do I do? And CHEA will tell you exactly what to do, and it's not that hard.
All right, so to clarify, in Colorado, is it a letter of intent or an affidavit? Because in California, all you need to homeschool privately without any part of the government is to file the private school affidavit.
That's what it was, the private school affidavit. No, so Colorado does not have a private school affidavit. You can go that route, but I do remember there's significant more steps. The takeaway from this part of the conversation is it is easier in California, and there's definitely a misconception that it's really, really hard in California. It's not like New York, where you have to fill out these things by paper and mail them in, and then you don't know if you're approved, and it's like you're in a big stack somewhere in a government building. No, California, yeah, and we found great. There's a lot of homeschool communities in California, lots of them attached to churches. Yeah, so it was a wonderful experience.
So California actually gets points for being one of the better states to homeschool in.
Wow, that is surprising. It
Yes.
was easy for us, so I guess that does make sense.
So thinking about homeschooling in general, why do you think it's important that every state has a homeschool organization for the sole purpose of, fighting for and defending and to helping families homeschool? Like California has CHEA, and other states have different organizations. But why do you think it's so important that there's statewide organizations?
I think that falls into a couple categories. So it is incredibly important that every state of the union has a homeschool organization dedicated to fighting for parental rights, which is obviously what CHEA is doing, amongst other things. You obviously help people homeschool and you get them plugged into stuff. And ours is called CHEC here in Colorado. It's extremely important because we live in this very interesting time. And I'm going through my Bible reading tonight in the Old Testament right now. And we're basically doing the same thing where, I work with Zan Tyler in South Carolina, and she tells her story about how they threatened her with jail all the time, while she had to work with lawyers and legislation to get the paperwork filed and approved so other families could also homeschool. I think we take all of those types of things for granted as homeschoolers, or even just parents in this country, and we just assume, yeah, we're the United States. Like we can do what we want. It's like, well, we have the Constitution to protect that, but you need individuals and organizations like CHEA to continually make sure that every state honors the Constitution, because you'd be shocked at how many bills try to get passed that is anti-Constitution. And if no one is voicing our rights, then it's just going to be glossed over. And it is much, much, much harder to undo bad legislation than it is just to be on the forefront to make sure it's not passed, because you can't do it. Someone wise told me once, coming from film, a trope you see in movies a lot is, oh, you signed an NDA. Like, I can't tell you those things. And an actual lawyer told me, he was like, it's a really funny trope because that's not how NDAs work. Like, NDAs can't trump the law. I can't hire Angela to work at my company and then have her embezzle a ton of money and then have her sign an NDA so she can't tell. That's not how it works. But however, I feel like what we're facing in this country is similar. Like we're trying to take away parents' rights. And it's always phrased in a very strange way to protect children or protect that. But a lot of these bills try to get passed that are blatantly compromising and going against the Constitution. But unless someone's there to say it, they'll still try to pass them. I hope that explains why I think CHEA is so important, why everyone in California that homeschools, and even if you don't homeschool yet, you should probably be a member of CHEA because these people are making sure parents maintain their God-given rights in this country. Let's just be honest. The United States over time has left the biblical worldview, what do they call it, Judeo-Christian values more and more over time, and it's been replaced by secular humanism. And I don't think it was a switch, but it's been slow. It's been the worship of me, the worship of self. It's in our movies, it's in our books, it's in entertainment, it's in the schools. It's like, what makes you happy? Somewhere along the line, we hit this point of like the purpose of life is your own happiness, which it is not. And so I think we have this notion that I can do whatever I want. I can pull my kids out of school. I can do all these things. It's like, yes, today you can, but you have to understand that wasn't true in some states even 20 years ago, which is not that long ago. There's like a lot of people now alive that homeschooled underground. Not actually, but on paper underground. And so that's why I don't think CHEA is just a good idea. I think it's crucial to parental rights sustainability in the state of California.
Yeah, I think even when I started homeschooling, which was over 20 years ago, even though the foundation had been laid, by organizations like CHEA and Family Protection Ministries, HSLDA, we still, I would not let my kids go in the front yard during the day. Like, we didn't go to the grocery store during the day. I had HSLDA's phone number on the back of my door in case anybody ever knocked at it. And so I would know what to do. And it was a lot different. I didn't tell people that we homeschooled because immediately my kids would just get grilled with ridiculous questions like, who's the third president? I'm like, whoa. Just because we homeschool, you think they know the third president? It was bizarre. It's like my kids were under a microscope.
It still happens. I think it's a lot different now. Even in California and Colorado, we had very similar experiences where if we're out at all and it comes up, we say, oh, we homeschool. Now the reaction usually is, oh, me too? Or it's, oh, that's amazing. My sister does that. Or I've thought about doing that. Like, we're meeting much, much, much less of your experience, much less of the like, oh, you're weird. Like, I believe the latest statistic I said we're approaching 5 million homeschoolers, which is, that's a tricky number because I believe certain states, again, you know better. I think like Oklahoma and maybe it's Montana. There's a few other states that don't actually keep data. Like, they don't track, like you don't have to. I think Oklahoma's the state. You don't even have to tell the state. But estimates are approaching 5 million. So it's like we're no longer this odd subsection of the education culture, which, back to your previous statement, is why things like CHEA are even, I'd argue they're more important now than they've ever been, because now the institution is feeling threatened because they lose, there's some counties here in Colorado, that are growing in population, but the school population is staying stagnant or even declining because homeschooling is on such a massive rise. So I would just say to any state homeschool organization now, like, buckle up because it's definitely about to get contentious.
Yes. So let's talk about homeschooling a little bit more, like your day. So now you have 5 kids, you're homeschooling. How does that look for you now?
My wife actually homeschools our 5 kids plus the cousins. So the cousins will come over too.
Oh, okay.
And she homeschools all of them. Right now it's just, right now one of them is just doing school, but essentially, so we use BJU Press Homeschool, and Monday through Thursday is what we've kind of decided is, I like to call it academics. This is just me personally. I believe life is school. And I think if we only call curriculum time school time, and this doesn't have to be a statement of CHEA, it's just a statement of Caleb. I think if we always call those times school times, it can begin to subconsciously ingrain, like, that's when I learn. But really, a big precedence of homeschooling is, at least for us as a family, and I'm sure yours as well, is you're always learning. That's kind of the point. Like, we're trying to teach you to always learn how to um, get correct information and vet it through a biblical worldview and know what's true and what's not. And how can you learn how to do this better and that better? So we call it academics. So my wife does academics time, probably like 10 to noon. And our kids are all under 9. So pretty much all academics can be done in 2.5 hours. And then it's a lot of, for us, what's really important is a child feeling like a child. So we have 2 tree houses in the backyard, so they're playing all the time. The big S question you always get asked, like, what about socialization? And now it's trending more, which is great. We're like, yes, it is very difficult to socialize like they do in school, where they're only allowed to talk to kids their age, and they can't go to the bathroom without raising their hand, and they only get to eat at a certain time. Like, you're right, considering the rest of the planet doesn't work the way these very strange school institutions are. Oh, I take that back, except prison. You're right, we don't socialize like that at all. Like, my kids have friends of various ages and demographics, and they're hanging out we do trail life. So Grace, my son, is super involved with his friends there. It's all part of it, Angela. Like, all of that ecosystem. My kids go with me on film shoots sometimes. They help me prep for stuff. Like, they're on sales calls next to me sometimes asking questions. And so that's how we approach homeschool. We're not unschoolers. We have a curriculum. There's check marks. We love it because it also sometimes can highlight what a child is maybe struggling with. And then, I'm sure you've covered this already, but our children never feel like stupid. They don't feel dumb, because in a classroom setting, you're basically qualified by what you know academically. Are you in math group 1, 2, or 3? Are you in a reading group A, B, or C? At a very early age, we teach our kids, like, hey, you're dumb. Or we teach them maybe disproportionately, oh, you're smart, just because they read earlier, or like they understood consonants at a more advanced pace. So that's a big thing my wife does now too, is she'll kind of pick up on if one of our children is struggling more than normal. And so she'll just stop the curriculum. She'll be like, okay, great. Like, clearly differentiating the uppercase and lowercase letters as they're writing phonics is hard. No big deal. We're just going to work on that for a few weeks. Whereas in a school system, it's get on the train or get off. And so when you struggle with something, you're putting the D reading group out in the hallway. And then while you're so consciously aware that your peers are more advanced in the classroom. So I kind of over-explained, but essentially, yeah, that's what all that is.
Yeah, well, I love all the points you made. And yeah, I laugh when I'll talk to people just starting out and they'll always ask, well, how do I give grades? I'm like, well, honestly, homeschoolers should always get A's, because why would you move on until they understand it? Why
That
would you
is
give them a
such a good
test to
point.
fail? Like, no, then if they actually don't do well, then you go back until they understand it. But yeah,
Exactly, which
we get
is,
hung up on that.
we really do. And kind of back to your point, you said that people would start grilling your kids, and they're going to start grilling them on academic things, right? Can you tell me what a consonant is? Which, by the way, I still struggle, so I don't know. But like, what are the vowels? How do you know what makes a word? And it's funny that the real world doesn't actually work like that. But because we're so kind of programmed to, like, I need to see results now. Let me see your quarterly report card. And I know this flies in the face of a lot of old school parental wisdom, but I, again, just don't care. But like, suddenly we were teaching kids, I'm sure you've heard this story millions of times. Like, oh, if you get all A's in your report card, I'll give you $100. Or if you get all A's in your report card, we'll go off for ice cream. It's like, well, now I'm doubling down on only one kind of intelligence. And Dr. Kathy in the movie goes over this. There's roughly 8 categories in school. I think only academic school only covers like 2. And so now we're raising kids to be like, I have to get a good grade on the report card. They're stressed out. And then we keep doing this to them. And then when they're 8, basically we're saying, here's your books, here's what you have to learn, which isn't really learning if you really want to go after it. It's not really learning. Like, you have to learn these things. You have to do it in this timetable. You have to do well on this test. We're not going to give you almost any autonomy except at recess. And then, by the way, we'll take that away too if you're behind. So, now we're handing out ADHD diagnoses like candy. And so these poor kids who need to be outside running and getting dirty, and then maybe buckle down for like 10, 15 minutes in spurts because they're 7 years old. Now we're telling them you need to stay in during recess, which there's a kid in the movie, we went over that, he really struggled to focus on math. And so they just took away his recess. They took away all of the stuff. So he'd have to stay in to do more math, which is like any psychiatrist would be like, what? But for some reason, this one system, we're just okay, I guess we'll just keep doing this. And then when you're 18, we're going to get right in your face and we want you to tell us what you want to do with the rest of your life. Even though we've told you what to do, what to think, and how to do it since you were 5, now we need you to tell us what college you're going to go to, why you're going to go to there, what you're going to study, and what you're going to be for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I love how you sum everything up because there's so it sounds like common sense.
If this was not a homeschooling podcast and no one knew that you homeschooled, Angela, or had an opinion about it, and you were in a random circle of moms and you just started saying qualms with school, they would all agree with you. It's when you deviate and say, which is why I believe homeschooling is a better route, that's when the pushback comes. Because now you're saying, hey, the system isn't actually fixable. The solution's been there since God created Adam and Eve as parents. And let's be honest, I go over this a little bit in the film when we talk about an 1850 Horace Mann basically created the public school based off a Prussian system. So it's interesting. People say, "Oh, public school's failing kids." It's like, no, it's not. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do. Like, it was never designed to like create free thinkers and ingenuity. I think if we're super honest with ourselves, Angela, the public school actually took off in greater ways because it does scratch that itch of parenting is very, very hard and very demanding. And I think we dramatically undersell to new parents how difficult it's going to be. It's okay that it's difficult. Obviously, we kept going. We have 5 of them. But the school system concept gives the parents a break. Because homeschooling is great, but it demands almost everything from you because it's not just education. Like we just covered, and you covered before, on average, younger children only need an hour to 3 hours absolute max of academic time, which means parents are like, what do we do with the rest of the time? It's like, well, you're the parent. You got to see that.
Well, you've already shared such great information, and I'm really excited for people to hear it. But if you had any one last bit of advice, especially for dads, because I think dads really feel like, well, homeschooling is the mom's job, or, dads really aren't quite sure where they fit in to the whole homeschool day. So maybe for dads, what kind of advice would you give to dads who are thinking about homeschooling or want to maybe encourage their wives to homeschool?
Those are some big questions because I could definitely encourage the dads, especially if the moms are already on board. Which when I made the film, I found that to be more true now. Like there's moms reading books, watching Instagram, etc., and they get inspired on discipleship, like home discipleship. And then it's kind of a little bit of a convincing the dad, which is interesting because statistically, a long time, like 10, 15 years ago, there were more conservative fathers. I hesitate to say the word pushing homeschool, but they were a little bit more of the homeschool champion. And I don't think that always worked out. Sometimes it was kind of like, hey, we're doing this no matter what, you need to homeschool. And so I think there's a pool, and I want to honor those mothers who worked very hard, but it maybe wasn't entirely their decision. And so I think now it's switched. Check out any statistic, take a hard look at your public school bearing, look at where statistically children have picked up all bad habits. It's peer influence. It's never parent influence. It's not teacher influence. If they're at a school, you are no longer the main influence of their life. And that can be hard to hear, but I'm not the only one saying it. There's psychologists, there's pediatricians. There's this great, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. He's out of Canada. It's not Jordan Peterson. There's an actual pediatrician who's saying the child brain development especially teenage and younger, needs to feel so unconditionally safe with their parents that we have to stop pretending they're still our kids if they spend the majority of their life in those years with someone else. So dads, you got to get with the program and understand that that's true. I totally understand you need to work, and I hope you're working and generating income and taking care of your family and all of that. I would say bring your kids in on that adventure. Why do you work? What is work? I mean, if this turns out this is one of the most important things as a man when we get married, we have to provide financially for our families. That's never covered and will not be covered in school. So you need to cover that, like as your kids get, especially as your young boys are getting older. And then I would also just encourage dads to like really be there and support for your wives, because they're pouring out all of themselves into your kids. So on a real practical note, what we figured out is if I go to the office, like I leave the house to go to the office twice a week when I'm not working from home, when I come home, it automatically triggers an hour to 2 hour break for my wife. Like she just leaves, grabs her Bible or meets up with friends or just goes on a walk. So those are just like, find the practical ways you can be there for your wife. I think there's a lot of moms out there who are burnt to a crisp, to be honest, homeschooling. Like if we're just being real, like it's taxing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So you need to provide, dads, you need to provide margin, and then let the mom have a break. And now you can come in and don't just like kick your shoes off and start watching TV. Like you now take over homeschooling. And here's the best part. That doesn't mean academics, because 10-1, that part was covered earlier in the day. But now you get to be there and roughhouse with your kids and let your daughters remind your daughters that they're princesses to you, and just take over, like fully embrace being a dad in those moments. That would be my encouragement. And then the last piece of encouragement, I would say, stop looking for immediate gratification and justification. And what I mean by that is back to your statement about how your kids were always grilled. Like that's not how the real world works anyways. Homeschooling's the long game. It is not about how well they can. And by the way, there's some academic homeschoolers that are wildly academically intelligent, like wildly. Like there's whole spelling bees and Bible bees and all these types of things. So I'm not saying that it can't happen, because it does in droves. However, it's not always about that. It's about the long game. You know, God gave you these kids. They're your responsibility, not someone else's. So you are forming their hearts in the long term. Like you're helping shape what kind of man is your son going to become? What kind of woman is your daughter going to become? And your daughter, by the way, is looking at you, fathers, to understand how a man is supposed to treat women. And by the way, if they're not around you and they're somewhere else all the time, they're going to pick that up somewhere else. So you need to set that standard. You can't accidentally trip yourself into being a good father. Like you need to be intentional.
I hope everybody really listened to that part. That was great. That was great. So as we start wrapping this up, though, gosh, I think we could probably go on for hours, but we really need to start wrapping this up. Homeschool dad, making films, doing all the things, and now you're helping CHEA make this great podcast. How did that happen? What is the whole podcast world opened up for you now?
Oh, it's been amazing. We obviously work with you guys to produce the CHEA podcast. We produce Checks, which is the Colorado version. We do the Kirk Cameron show. We launched All Things Possible with Bethany Hamilton. Essentially, during COVID, I saw this need in the podcasting space. And so we help faith voices in the podcasting world. Yeah, I don't want to do a whole sales pitch, but that's essentially what we do. And we're like the headache remover, the editing, the distribution, the SEO show notes, the reels, the clips, all of that kind of stuff. So the hosts, such as yourself, can hyper focus on the mission. Who are you talking to? Why are you talking to them? What do you want about your audience to be different after every episode? So yeah, that's what we do now. I love it from an entrepreneurial perspective and homeschooling, because I get a lot of time with my kids and a lot of time with my wife. So yep, it's called, we are podcastupload.com.
All right. And I think you mentioned the Homeschool Awakening can be watched on Tubi now, but do you have any other websites, or if people want to find you any other way?
Yeah, I mean, you can just Google Caleb Price, or in the show notes, go to thepodcastupload.com. We have a contact form. I'm pretty easy to find and get a hold of. But yeah, the Homeschool Awakening right now is available on Tubi. But if you don't want to go there, you can also you can rent it on Amazon. It was widely distributed. So you just search Homeschool
Wonderful.
Awakening Kirk Cameron, you'll find it.
Great. And yes, we will have all of that in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
So thank you so much. This was a great conversation. I really appreciate that you took the time to share your words of wisdom with California families, those already homeschooling, those praying about homeschooling. And I think if anybody was listening that was on the fence, you shared a lot of great advice that we might be having some new California homeschoolers soon.
Let's hope so, Angela. It was an honor. It was a privilege. Thank you so much for having me.
This has been such a great conversation. I love Caleb's heart for families, and I hope all you just heard has encouraged you. If you want to connect with Caleb's work, head over to calebpriceproductions.com and thepodcastupload.com, where you can learn more about everything he's doing in podcasting and film. And if you are a California family wondering whether homeschooling is even possible for you, well, this is exactly why CHEA exists. We have been right here in California for over 40 years, walking alongside families just like yours. So please visit our website, cheaofca.org, for more information on how to get started homeschooling. And please, before you go, if you have not yet registered for CHEA's annual Parenting and Homeschool Convention, please mark your calendars for July 10th and 11th in Downey, California, for 2 full days of great speakers, practical workshops, and the kind of community that reminds you why you're doing this. We would love to see you there. All the details are on our website, cheaofca.org. And if this episode encouraged you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe so you do not miss what is coming next. Remember, you can homeschool and CHEA can help. God bless you.
Brought to you by thepodcastupload.com, empowering faith-driven voices.